On? Yes. Good morning. The songs by Heather and Yale Latte couldn't be more perfect for me this morning. This morning is my mother's birthday, and she would be 109 years old today. But more importantly, I want to honor the two most powerful women in my life. One was my mother, and the other was my spiritual teacher, Terry Cole Whitaker. I met her when I was 14 years old. She was my camp counselor. And then when I went away to college, I worked for the ministry, Terry Cole Whitaker Ministries, for 7 years. She changed my life. And at 13, 14, I knew that one day I wanted to be a minister. It took me 4 decades, but here I am. Thank you. That's right. Terry passed away last Tuesday. And she had just released her last book the week before. And in the wonderful tradition of honoring the most powerful women in my life, both my mother as a spiritual teacher, and I was considered by Terry, and I considered Terry as my spiritual mother. I called her Terry Ma, and she said I was her daughter throughout our first encounter. I would like to light the candle today for my mentor, my spiritual leader, who influenced so many souls on this planet, to her good works and to my mother's good works, to celebrate the ancestors and the power of the women in my life. Christopher? Thank you. I am so excited about being here today. Power to the people. This is a pretty incredible time in our lives, wouldn't you say? Yes. A time where we need to own our power as the people. And interestingly enough, these themes were done a year ago. And how many times do we hear power for the people and by the people? And it is time to stand in our power. I like to start off all my sermons with an intention. And the intention I invite you to have for yourself. An intention that sets the tone and the opening and possibility for you to receive what you came here for today. Whether it be in the message, and today definitely the music, because wherever you can hear the message that you need, this is an opportunity to set that intention for yourself, no matter what it is. So I invite you to give 20 seconds or 30 seconds to your intention of what you want to walk away with and practice during the week, to both inspire people around you and to find peace to navigate all the things that are in front of us, both in our country, our community, and our personal relationships. Shall we do that? Let us go within. Thank you, Spirit. And also, I get so much inspiration from reading the Webster's Dictionary. Power to the people. I found it fascinating that the Webster's Dictionary gives 3 aspects of power. And I also find out that in all spiritual traditions, there's the triune spirit. So as we go, both physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of power. The first is in the power of our material world. From Webster, power is the possession and control and authority to influence over others. In general, power is defined as the ability to do or act, the capacity of doing or accomplishing something, giving yourself personal power. Mine too. Politically, power, the outcome reached through collaboration, influence, with or without outside authority. That is a choice. Now, spiritual power had much more of a lengthy definition. Spiritual power, owning one's own choices through inspiration and being held accountable for them. Spiritual practice, spiritual power or energy is the essence of life, harnessing the qualities of your mind, your body, and your soul. Mind, body, and spirit are inherent intelligence that permeates all aspects of our existence, from the smallest particle to the vast cosmos. That is Webster's dictionary. That's pretty powerful, wouldn't you say? Today, I'm going to read a quote and then go into a little bit of sermon and tell my story that I brought today. There is, in Buddhism, the Gospels of Buddha. And I think when we talk power to the people as a community that believes in oneness, that knows we are all one, and how easy it is to have amnesia about that, especially when I'm driving my car. But I'm going to read this. I think it's powerful, and it speaks so sweetly of oneness. By Buddha. All things are made of one essence, yet things are different, and according to the forms which they assume under different impressions. As they form themselves, so they act. And as they act, so they are. It is if a potter made different vessels out of the same clay. Some of these pots no longer contain sugar, coffee, or rice. Others still are the vessels of impurity. There is no diversity in the clay used. The diversity of the pots is only due to the molding hands of the potter, who shapes them for the various uses that circumstances require. And as all things originate from one essence, so they are. We offer to the omniscient God, or spirit, or infinite intelligence, our reverence, our gratitude for the light of our divine nature. Whew. Let's talk about what goes on through history, what our ancestors went through, and how we are going to stand for the future. If we believe that the material world is the only world that exists, that as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if we have food and shelter and water, it is enough to survive. When I was in junior high school, and most of you will probably remember this because it had a big impact, there was an orphanage in Russia. And in this orphanage, they fed the babies, changed the babies, had a clean environment for the babies. But they said there was no need, not enough staff, not enough people, to hold the babies, to kiss the babies, to bond with the babies. And during that time, they thought that was okay. Until the babies were dying at an alarming rate. Curiously enough, the only babies that survived were the ones closest to the door. And they were wondering, well, why are all these babies dying? We're giving them all the necessities in life. Come to find out, as they were observing, that the children close to the door were being visited every night by a nurse who would come in and hold those babies, kiss on those babies, and bond with those babies. They survived. There was no difference, except for love, bonding, connection. That is the food for our soul. And anyone who thinks that's a mere luxury in this life needs to navigate a different place of information. The Dalai Lama, and I'm going to praise the Dalai Lama, and I mean paraphrase, sorry, and praise. Both praise and paraphrase. This, he said, and I know this with every cell in my soul. He said, don't be fooled. Love and compassion are not mere luxuries. They are the essence for the survival of humanity. Make no mistake. We disregard the invisible spiritual power of our being. We dismiss it, and we see, in the Bible it says, the love of money is the root of all evil. Look at what it says, the love, not money. Money is just a tool. But if you love it more than you love the essence of who you are, and maybe even the purpose of why you're here, you're going to hit some tough roads. The power of compassion is no joke. To practice kindness and love is no joke. It's not teddy bears. It's not flowers. Well, romantic stuff is, but not the essence of who we are and why we're here. Spirituality is about the omnipotent power of God, the knowing, omniscient power of God, and the omnipresence of God, which is God, whatever name you want to call it, is not outside of ourselves. It is us. It is the essence of who we are. And I believe why you're here, why I'm here. We're going through some dark times in this country. How do we combat what other faiths call evil? We don't believe evil, in science of mind, is an entity outside oneself. But it is a spectrum. It is a choice that we are given when we are born. We have the choice to choose what kind of life we want to live and what kind of life we want to practice and what kind of legacy we're giving our children back there. What kind of legacy? We are the ancestors, no matter if you're 12. You will be the ancestors for your children and for children's children beyond that. With every faith for thousands of years, they try to answer the questions of why is there pain and why is there suffering and why do people do unspeakable things to one another? And the answer is they believe their survival is about power over. Power over. To accumulate as much stuff as they possibly can. Beautiful cars, beautiful partners, beautiful clothes. Nothing wrong with beauty. Nothing wrong with money. But if your love on that aspect of life is bigger than the invisible aspects of why we exist on this planet, your vision is altered. It's important to know in every faith they talk about the one truth that unites us. The first commandment is in the 10 Commandments is, thou shalt not kill. Yes, we do have a military. Yes, we do have a police force. Because in our evolution, that's where we're at. But individually, the power is to the people. And you and I, my friends, we are the people. And it is time that we stand and remember that what we practice in the invisible spiritual world is what moves and has our being. Even the scientists say, when you give acts of kindness, your serotonin levels go up, your dopamine goes up, and it influences the whole room, random acts of kindness, to then you see someone being kind, something touches your soul, and people will then, in the next moment or the next few moments, do something kind to another. Darkness doesn't have that same power, but kindness does, and compassion does. And I don't want to hold compassion and love as something, as a side dish. It must be the main course. If you are looking for a deepness in who you are, if you are looking for a calling in life, you must search within to find ways to be of service, more compassionate, and more loving to each entity that you come into contact with. Animals, plants. And do you know why this choir, Aleyate, and Heather Houston, and all our singers are so powerful? Because music bypasses our brain of intellectuality, our intellect. Our intellect, as Emerson says, all opinions are wrong. Because we're navigating only on an intellectual and material space. If you want more love in your life, if you even want more abundance, abundance is that experience that you feel of joy, of inspiration, of love. You find that in service. You find that in being kind. It is not merely, again, something as an afterthought. It must be your forethought. And in these times, as we profess to be kind people and spiritual people, we instantly have amnesia around the people we don't like. The funny thing is, we don't have to like you, and you don't have to like me, but I must love you. I must love the oneness because we're all made of the same clay. I must love you because I deeply, in my roots and by my powerful teachers, my mother and Terry Cole Whitaker, taught me that those principles to navigate the world in, that is our saving grace. That is where all the gifts of this life pour forth. Because in the end, ask yourself what remains. What remains of your legacy? And what has remained for the people who taught you how to love, and by whatever reason, the people who taught you how not to love? These principles, all the spiritual teachings, stand on this truth, stand on this foundation, that no matter the chaos before us, that we must stand in remembering and navigating the world to the best of our abilities in each moment, to not have amnesia, to go forth, no matter what political party you are, to not lose our humanity. Because I believe I am here with the power of choice to experience whatever choices I'm making. Because that's the only power I have. The only power any of us have in change is to change ourselves. How many people have tried to control a 2-year-old? Not very easy. How many people have tried to control their spouses? Not very fun. That's not the makeup. Maybe the mystery of life is having choices. And if we choose the darkness, if we feed the darkness, if we water the seeds of darkness, Ernest Holmes says, we will experience more darkness. Now, there is a collective consciousness besides our individual consciousness, and it's impactful, it's powerful. Look at our prisons. You know, after the Holocaust, Germany decided, because the world had a lot of hatred towards Germany for the atrocities in the world that they brought, they decided, it was on a 60-minute show, 60 Minutes. This journalist went, and he went over to Germany to see how they treat their prisoners. Now, the criminally insane prisoners were in a separate unit. But the other prisoners were like in dorm rooms. And there wasn't a lot of fences around the prison. They were given schooling. The guards didn't carry guns. They carried spray. And they treated them with humanity. And the journalist said, oh my goodness, this is working, treating people with humanity. The recidivism rate was like 0, low. And he said, what would it take for this country to have that role model of transforming our prisons? And the other gentleman said, which surprised me, it would take a leap in consciousness for the United States to change its mind as big as the Grand Canyon itself. Let's talk about people who've gone on that spectrum of darkness and fed the darkness and committed atrocities and choose to walk and talk with that division, the isms, the racism. How do we hold them? How do we treat them when they're locked away? And what is the opportunities for when they get out? I always said, if someone says they're pro-life, they have to take that pledge all the way to that person's death. Not give up on them once they're here. That's pro-birth. That is not pro-life. Okay? Pro-life is about caring for one another right here, right now, navigating the mental health issues, the homelessness, and the people who want to have power over instead of power to the people, by the people, for our humanity to survive and have its existence in the truth of our being, which is not materialism. It is love, and it is compassion, and it is fierce, and there is no denying it. What we want is to belong. What we want is to be loved. What we want is our children to be safe. Those are the things, and all great teachers have lit the way and paths. Whether you're agnostic and believe in science, but you're kind. Whether you're atheist and say, I don't know, I don't believe. It doesn't matter. You on the compassion and kindness are it. You don't have to have any philosophy to know that, to be that, to act that. And darn it, it is challenging. It is challenging. Whatever I'm attached to, whatever my ego is holding on to, man, I can be fierce about wanting what I want. And then it always smacks me in the face. I want to tell this story. It's a political story. It's a story of our country. And Beth was talking about the Legacy Museum in the South. Most of you might have heard this story. Most of you know John Lewis, who passed away, who was in the political arena, congressman who had his office. And Cory Booker, one of our senators, was visiting John Lewis. He coined the phrase, good trouble. Cory Booker went to John Lewis's office, and he was sitting there, and they were discussing different political ideologies. And every time he went in, he saw a picture above John Lewis's door that was very pronounced. And he said, you know, I'm really curious about that picture above your door. And it was of John Lewis, an elderly Caucasian white man, and his, a young teen with him. This makes me cry. John Lewis was with Martin Luther King in the 60s, crossing the bridge, nonviolent assembly and protest for civil rights. And the Ku Klux Klan came and started using bats, knives, signs, whatever they could to beat the protesters, with the intention of killing them and stopping them from protesting to have equal rights in this country. This one particular man took a bat and swung it many, many times over John Lewis's head. John Lewis almost did not survive. And he went on to do good works and created good trouble in our political system. A couple decades later, he was sitting in his office, and his secretary came up and said, there is a man who wants to see you, but he's very nervous about it. I don't know why, and he's with his grandson. And he goes, what is this man's name? The secretary gave the man's name. And he said, please, let him come in. He came in with his grandson and stood in the door and said, before I enter, I am here today to beg your forgiveness. I was wrong. And I'm here today to step through these doors, if you so allow me to teach my grandson I was wrong. John Lewis said, of course, I forgive you. The man walked in with his grandson. He said, I am here because I want to teach my grandson to end the hate. This was the man who struck John Lewis in the head with the bat in 1960s. John Lewis said that impact changed his life to go deeper in knowing that his good trouble and his good work and his belief in nonviolence and his belief in humanity and his belief in oneness stood the test of time, that in the next generation, maybe his son didn't hear it, but in the second generation for his grandson, he went as a proud man with the offer of wanting to be forgiven for his wrongdoing and his hatred. That's what we have. That's the power to the people, for the people, by the people. It is not grandstanding. It is each moment we see suffering to be of service, to to make our way in this life, to navigate our way in this life with the power, the omniscient power, the omnipotent power, the essence that we are made of by divine design. That is why we're attracted to spirituality, because somewhere we go from here, an intellectual exercise, to here. Because the reality of the invisible universe and love and compassion, it overrides everything. So I implore you today to stand right now. To stand in your power, knowing whatever has befalled you, whatever suffering you've ever gone through, that your mission here on earth right now, you woke up this morning, is divine design that you know you can make a difference. And you never know who it is. My mother, my spiritual teacher, Terry Ma, are just two of the ancestors of mine. What remains with your legacy? What do you want to give to your children, to humanity, to tomorrow, to the next moment? Because there's suffering everywhere. Standing in your power right now. Do you want to stand in your power knowing compassion is the fiercest thing in this world? Yes. Do you want to stand in your power knowing love is the most powerful thing and presence in this universe? Yes. I can't hear you. Yes. Then my prayer is done. Amen.